Hey guys, what's up? It's Panther, and as you probably already know, patch 9.13 just released to the live servers. As a result, I wanted to do a complete and in-depth tier list for every role in patch 9.13. Before we get into the tier list though, for those of you that don't know, we recently launched our website, GameLeap.com. We have hundreds of advanced, in-depth guides made by challenger players, so if that's something that you're interested in, then make sure to go check out the website. Now without further ado, GameLeap's patch 9.13 complete tier list. Just a reminder that this patch, Kiana will be joining us on the Rift. However, we like to keep new champions and reworks out of tier lists for, at the very least, the first 2 weeks. This is so that we're able to gauge where they're at balance-wise and where they fit into the meta. Now, starting out with the biggest change in the top lane, we have the absolute gutting of solo lane Pyke. Not only did Riot make his Q ability single target, but they also changed his E to only damage champions. This means that Pyke will no longer be viable in a solo lane due to his complete lack of wave clear, and that he will find his home once again returning to the support role. Next up we have Alawi with just an absurd amount of changes made to her this patch. I'm going to try and summarize how these changes affect her gameplay in a way that makes sense even for players that don't play Alawi. Her early poke trades will take a small hit as the spirit duration is down 3 seconds, and usually it takes a while to kill the spirit when you are lower in level, so you might not be able to kill a spirit that you normally would have been able to. This is greatly offset, however, by the fact that her dueling capability is going to be upped massively, as fighting on her spirit will no longer reduce the duration of said spirit. Harder lanes like Renekton, Riven, and Irelia will become much easier for Alawi this patch. This paired with some quality of life changes made to her kit should see her firmly placed in the A tier for this patch. Overall, a solid pick for those of you that do enjoy her. Karma will be receiving some nerfs to her E this patch, lowering the movement speed duration by a full second. This actually does have a huge impact on solo lane Karma, as she doesn't really ever empower her E to make up for that nerf. As a result, both mid lane and top lane Karma will be moving from S tier to A tier. Support Karma will not be impacted nearly as much by this, due to the fact that she is going to be empowering her E most of the time as opposed to her W or her Q. This means that she will still get the full 2.5 second duration, though her early game will be a little bit weaker. Now, unfortunately for Ornn, the small increase in the AD ratio on his Q is just not going to be enough to bump him up, especially since he does not build any AD in the first place. As a result, the Fire Below the Mountain will remain a low tier pick, being trumped by better tanks like Tahm Kench, Maokai, and Garen. In your S tier for top lane, you're going to be looking at Aatrox and Mordekaiser as your top picks. These two are something that you can blind pick into virtually anything while still seeing good results. Joining these two in the S tier is going to be Darius, Jax, Riven, Vladimir, and Nico. All of these champions will be good into 90% of picks and are very strong at virtually every point in the game with very good carry potential. In the A tier, your noteworthy champions are going to be Kennen, Karma, Irelia, and Alawi. These champions are very strong currently, but struggle against some of the meta picks and can be very heavily counterpicked, forcing them out of the S tier and into the A tier. You'll notice that updated Ryze is not on this tier list, and that's simply because he's so new. Though if I had to place him, it would be in either A or S tier, as my initial impressions are that he looks quite strong if he's able to get to mid to late game. This goes for mid lane Ryze as well. Moving on to the jungle changes, Sejuani received 2 nerfs this patch, targeting her AP scaling and the damage on the second portion of her W. This, however, should not be enough to dethrone her from the spot as the #1 tank jungler in the game, just a smidge above Nunu, keeping her firmly in the S tier. The only other jungle changes this patch are to Udyr, giving him the option of 1 extra point in each ability at levels 16 and onwards. This allows him to max out 3 of his abilities if he so chooses without having to waste points on an ability that he does not want to be using. This will not be enough, however, to bump him up a spot, as there are so many other junglers that do his job but better. Udyr will be finding his home comfortably in the A tier, as he provides a lot of different playstyles but is not the best at any one of them. In the S tier this patch, your top picks are going to be Hecarim and Kayn, specifically Ignite, Smite, Hecarim. These champions are good in every situation and can find a place in any game. Now, if you've never played Ignite, Smite, Hecarim before, then I would make sure to check out our guide on him so that you can find out how to make the most out of this unique playstyle. Joining these two in the S tier are going to be Vi, Nunu, Sejuani, Elise, and Lee Sin. There are many more contenders to the S tier, but a lot of them are more situational, whereas these picks will be good in about 95% of situations. Now, notice picks like Xin, Jarvan, Kindred, and Rek'Sai in the A tier. These are also very strong picks, but are unable to reach the S tier due to some of the limitations on their playstyles. For example, if you're playing Xin and not able to pressure the map early, then he'll not be all too useful later on into the game. Also notice that Rengar and Shaco are in the B tier. This is simply because, similar to Elise and Lee Sin, they require a lot of experience to make the most of. However, they have the added drawback of fitting awkwardly into a lot of team comps, and you'll frequently find yourself struggling to round out the team comp, whereas Lee or Elise can fit into practically any team comp without any issues. Now, moving to the center of the map, in the mid lane, Sylas is yet again receiving changes to his W with a raw number buff. He gets up to 25 damage increase when fully leveled. This paired with some buffs to his AD and HP growth results in Sylas making his home in the A tier. Syndra is receiving some small mana growth buffs, however these will likely not impact her at all as she generally doesn't have any mana issues. She will be sitting comfortably in the A tier as well for now. The only way that I could see these Syndra changes affecting her placement is if we were to see a tier build return, and that would result in Syndra getting a little bit more AP on the tier once it's been completed to a Seraphs. Your top picks this patch in the S tier are going to be Katarina and Zed. These champions are able to deal absurd amounts of damage and blink around a teamfight multiple times. They're able to assassinate multiple targets if done properly and hard carry teamfights. If you want to opt for more of a utility pick, then look to pick up Lux or Neeko, and if roaming is your playstyle, then Talon and TF are the kings of this. Vlad should be your go-to hyperscaling mage if that's the type of game you enjoy playing. The classical Orianna, Cassiopeia, and Syndra Trinity find their place in the A tier, as they are very solid picks, but just not quite as strong as a lot of other mid laners currently. Moving on to ADC, Sivir is seeing some mana nerfs on her W, which should make it a bit harder for her to permapush out lanes before she gets her Essence Reaver. This drops her down to the A tier right next to her utility counterpart Ashe. We're also seeing some very minor buffs to Tristana, increasing her rocket jump by 10 damage and her AD growth per level by 0.2. This is honestly not enough to do anything for her, and she will remain at the bottom of the barrel in C tier. Now, notice Kog'Maw sneaking his way into the A tier. This is due to his fantastic synergies with a lot of the stronger Enchantress supports like Lux, Karma, and Lulu. He's unable to claim a spot in the S tier, however, due to how situational he is and how reliant he is on his team. Alright, last but certainly not least, we have the supports. Sona receives some long-awaited nerfs to both her Q and her E that should target more AP heavy builds. However, if you're building more of a classical Sona with items like Ardent and Redemption, then these will not do anything at all to her really, and she should remain in the S tier. Now, Lux is by far the strongest support in the game currently, somehow having avoided nerfs this patch. So make sure you're picking her up if you want some free elo. In fact, Thresh might be the only support in the game that's actually able to match Lux's pressure. The thing that Lux has over Thresh, however, is the fact that she's very, very easy to pick up and just play, whereas Thresh is not. He takes a lot of effort and a lot of practice. That being said, below Lux in the S tier, notice picks like Valkaz and Nami. These champions are largely able to play the lane aggressive and 1v2 the lane for your ADC while still having fantastic setup and kill pressure and supplementing jungle ganks very well. In the A tier, notice picks like Leona and Alistar, your lockdown supports. Now, these supports would be a lot better if it wasn't for Conqueror being in the game and the overabundance of true damage. The simple fact is, once they're in, and they're most likely going to die because there's so much true damage and they just can't tank it, and they're not able to stack health all too reliably. That does it for today's video. If you didn't see a champion in the tier list, it likely means that it just isn't viable in that specific role. However, if you think we missed something and you want to see it in our next tier list video, then make sure to let us know in a comment down below. If you liked the video, then make sure to like and subscribe. We post new content done by Challenger players every day. I also want to remind you that we recently launched our website, GameLeap.com, where we have hundreds of different videos by Challenger players on in-depth subjects. If you are interested in upping your game to the next level, then I would definitely recommend checking out the website. The search feature is easy to use, and we're going to be posting a lot more videos coming soon. That does it for today's video. As usual, I hope you learned something valuable, and I will see you in the next one.